Hello and welcome to this edition of the Beacon Hill Report. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network, and joining us in the other seat here is State Representative Tony Cabral of New Bedford. Good to see you, Representative.
Nice seeing you, Jim. It's always a pleasure to be here with you.
Been a few months, 4 months. I look back and the last time we chatted was October. Certainly a lot has happened since October goes around. Congratulations on re-election.
Thank you.
And to start, I mean, one of the big things for you right now personally is with the new Speaker of the House, you have a new chairmanship.
Yes, I do, and I'm excited about it. I chaired the previous committee for quite a number of terms.
The bonding.
The bonding committee,
Yep.
It's a very good committee. I think we've done wonderful things there for New Bedford in particular and in the South Coast. And we'll continue working on that and continue to be effective on that end. It's an opportunity to chair another committee. I'm excited about that. This committee,
State Administration and Regulatory Oversight.
Yes, well, the name. What does that mean? Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, there's so many interesting stuff. It can go from procurement, like Chapter 30B, for example, all those issues around RFPs and all that, to open meeting law, to public records law. To restructuring of state government. If you're going to, like from time to time, governors do submit changes to restructure some stuff. No, that's just some of the examples of the things that we can do in that committee. And
you had told me off air that you chaired this committee 12 years ago.
Yes,
which is kind of ironic. I'm wondering, the first thing I'm thinking of, has, in a sense, that changed? Has this state government changed in those 12 years for this committee assignment?
I think it has. Lots of things have changed, actually. We did a lot of stuff in the past around open meeting law, public records law. I had filed a number of bills around that. I still have a couple of other areas in that area that need some fixing. So it's a great opportunity to be back to that committee and being able to push some of those other additional changes that need to take place in that area in particular. And then there's the whole area of regulatory oversight. I think that's exciting. I think so many things have changed, in particular around renewables, around energy, climate change, and all the regulations that go along with that. I think we're going to have an opportunity to carve out some areas that we can actually do a deep dive there and see what the policies are right now in those areas around offshore wind, around procurement.
Well, I was thinking
wind.
Offshore wind is especially important here in New
Right.
Bedford. It sounds like the committee assignment is good for the harbor as well.
Right, absolutely. So it will be great opportunities. It's also the kind of a committee that has a lot more interaction with the general public. Bonding was more an inside kind of interaction with the administration, with the various, the branches, both the Senate and the House, Wall Street, the rating agencies, that kind of interaction. Here we have, we're still going to have, especially on the regulatory side of the committee, we're still going to have a lot of exchange with the administration, but also with the general public. People who have different ideas, different thoughts of how the state is doing things, how can the state do it better. So I think that's an exciting area, especially around the whole issue of renewables,
Right.
Energy efficiency, tax credits now for electric cars, electric trucks, all those regulations and all those policies. We can look into those. The committee can look into those and see, is it working the way it's been rolled out? Does it need to tweak? Does it need any tweaks here and there?
Right.
So I'm excited.
And there's new things too coming up.
New things, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
back in October when we chatted, we were talking, obviously the big talk was about the pandemic, and obviously it still is at that point in time. And things have changed a lot since then too. The vaccines have rolled out. We had a surge in the wintertime. But back in October, you were pleased with the way the state had been handling the pandemic. As we look at, when we tape the show here in March, the vaccines have rolled out. You and I were talking off air. There have been some hiccups. Your assessment right now of where the state stands as far as the pandemic, and how has the state responded overall?
Well, I mean, can the state do better? Yes, it can do better in some areas, and I think we're working on that. Both the administration and the legislature is working on that. And
the legislature wants to have more, I don't know, say, but they want to know more about what's going on.
Well, I think the legislature should have more say. And I think some of the new committees, there were 2 or 3 new committees that were established, some of them specifically around the pandemic and how we handle that. And also, I think in the long run, you're not going to see that now in the short term, but in the long run, we might need to look at the law that governs state of emergency. And when a governor declares a state of emergency, how much powers does the governor have versus the legislature, or when should the legislature chime in or change that? That has not been reformed. That whole act that governs state of emergencies have not been reformed since, I believe, the 50s.
Do you think part of that too is the fact that because the pandemic has lasted so long? I mean, when you think of a state of emergency, from most cases, they're abbreviated,
right.
Whether it's a storm or something like that. So
it's usually a natural disaster
correct.
Or a storm. For example, the blizzard of '78, for example, that was a state of emergency. We've had others,
Right, a governor does take control of that because it's a short-term thing.
Right.
So,
and they should. They should be able to make decisions quick, and because usually the legislature takes a little longer to.
Right. So as you were just mentioning too in your thing, when the legislature takes control, or not takes control, but when the legislature starts to have a say in what goes on, whether it be 3 months or 6 months or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to look back. I think we need to look back at the whole act, the law. The general law that is on the books right now that governs that whole issue. Should we, for example, right now the governor can declare a state of emergency, and it can go on forever until he or she decides that it's no longer an emergency. Now, some states don't do it that way. Some states, there's a time frame, and then the governor has to come back either to the legislature or has to come back and say and give the reasons why he has to continue that state of emergency. Some countries do it that way as well. I mean, some countries in Europe and other parts of the world, if you have seen it and followed that, and they have to, even the government has to go back to the parliament, in this case of countries, and get a reauthorization of the state of emergency, right?
Right.
I'm not suggesting we should go all the way there to that point necessarily, but I think it's something that probably we should in the long run. I don't think right now we need to look at it right necessarily. But probably it's something to look at. Some states do it that way.
But as you were saying too, a governor, especially in the emergency situations of a storm or something like that, the governor should have
absolutely
the ability to make decisions quickly.
Should. Quick decisions, good decisions. I'm not saying that that we need to do it or change it or reform it because of whatever might be happening. I think it is the legislature that gives those authorities, right?
Right.
It is the legislature that passed that law that governs the state of emergency. And I think it's just like we reformed open meeting law a few years ago, or the public records. So I think, which had never been reformed since the early 1970s, for example, in the case of those particular laws. I think it was always good to look back and see what areas that probably need to be updated, because some things have changed, especially around the digital world, social media, and how we work remotely now versus. So some of those things the law also has to speak to, and right now it doesn't necessarily. So the governor is making those decisions sort of without necessarily legislative guidance.
It's interesting because one of the things that I found curious, and I was talking to you about off camera beforehand, was that as the state looks ahead down the road when hopefully COVID has passed us, I mean, there's going to be changes in the way the state administers government. I mean, there seems to be at least talk of government employees, some of them working from home, the telework. I don't know if that's been successful or not, but it seems as though that appears to be, because of technology, a way of the future.
No, I think you're going to see some changes after the COVID is passed. I think we're going to work differently in some cases, not necessarily all departments, not necessarily all areas of state government, but in particular around some areas of the executive branch that doesn't require one-on-one or human contact per se in that sense. I think that's going to remain probably to a certain extent remote work, which is okay. I think in the past we were sort of concerned that, well, if the person is working from home or from a different location, are they working, are they not working? Now, the technology is such that you know when the person logged on, when the person logged off, if the person is, so you can actually contact that person live anytime you want because of the systems that are in place now around Teams and around Zoom and so forth. Teams is a Microsoft system.
There's so many of them now that you didn't even know existed before this came about.
Teams is one that works very well with, not to get too technical, around the so-called 365 Office, which is if the network that you are using is connected like that, then okay, the person is supposed to be at work at 9 o'clock. Well, if they logged in at 9 o'clock or not.
An interesting
so
thing.
There are ways of making sure that the work is productive. People are on their station, if you will, or their desk. So I think they're looking at all of that. I know that one of the big areas of government, Health and Human Services, they are actually looking at that, and other departments are looking at that, and they are coming out with some recommendations that will probably implement it after June.
And businesses are doing that too, especially in Boston. And you were making a great point that those people that are working from home and will continue to work from home, that has an impact on the economy.
Yes, it does, in many areas of the economy. In particular, if you go to places like Boston, obviously, those the big buildings, right? The tall buildings it's all offices, and around there's a whole support system around those places, be small restaurants, be coffee places, coffee shop, whatever it might be. Those will be impacted going forward, depending on how the workplace will be come the end of the pandemic. Both from state government and obviously from the private industry, the private sector.
It's curious too, because in your job, in your staff, and I know obviously a few of your staff members, that's a type of job where it's hard to work from home with all the different issues that your staff faces on a daily basis, really.
It's challenging because the nature of work that we do, it needs sometimes that human connection, human contact, that interaction, those sort of networks, if you will. But I think most of them have adjusted fairly well so far. I think I'm hoping that going forward soon, that we can actually adjust how we work. It's at some point we have to open the State House, not only to us but to the general public. It is one of the most historical buildings in Boston, right, in the Commonwealth. It's probably one of the, if you want to call it a location that gets the most visitors. It used to. So I think
it's always busy.
Always busy, from tourists to school children going up and going there for a field trip to just the public walking in and trying to participate or be on a public hearing.
I was always amazed walking through the State House, and we've talked about this before, is just the relationships. Not that things get done, but a lot of times, especially in your position, you talk to your colleagues, and that 5-minute walk from one room to the next room, things get, I don't want to say things get done, but things get understood because you're having those one-on-one conversations. Here's what I'm thinking, can you help me, and vice versa. And I would assume, and you said it last time, There's 160 representatives. It's, especially right now, you're not seeing all of your colleagues,
right,
and you're not having those relationships.
Now, those relationships are important, obviously, and I'm hoping that at some point we are safe enough to return to that type of work environment, and I think we will. In the meantime, we have to do a lot of phone calling, a lot of texting, a lot of Zoom, if you want to use that term. And it makes it a little more difficult for those sort of 5-minute converstions kind of thing.
They add up over a course of a day.
Yes,
those 5-minute conversations add up.
They do. But I think so far most people have adjusted. Things seems to be working very well. In terms of how the state is handling stuff, I mean, going back, I think around the vaccination issue, I think was some major hiccups at the beginning. I think most of those have been resolved. I think we're at a point that the system is beginning to smooth out, getting a little bit better at this. I know there's still a level of frustration and anxiety around the issue. There's still a little more to do to make it even better. But at this point, I think also we are running into the so-called supply and demand.
Right. Yep.
Right now, we don't have enough dosages on a weekly basis that gets distributed from the federal government to really meet the demand.
Right.
The good thing is, if there is a good thing about that, is that actually there are more people who actually want to be vaccinated than what people thought. They thought that at the beginning people would be reluctant, people would be concerned, because it was so quick to develop these vaccines versus the traditional time does. Plus folks who might have some religious objections and so forth. The list goes on. So far, actually, it's been the contrary. People are actually anxious. They want to get it done. They want to do it, and that's really good. That's positive, really positive, because we need to get as many people as possible vaccinated in Massachusetts and in the country, and eventually in the world. I mean, we have to go beyond our own borders at some point, or else we can't be living just within our own borders.
Has the distribution been equitable, do you think? I mean, is in your case, do you think New Bedford is getting its share of shots compared to other places?
Well, I think there's been some hiccups on that too. There's been some issues around that. I think we've gone and worked hard with the administration to address those as well. Even locations, for example, at the beginning there was a concern that us in the South Coast were not getting a mega site, if you will, or other locations. I think that's correcting itself, and it's doing because of the advocacy of folks like myself and other legislators and local officials with the governor's office and with Secretary Sudders, for example. I mean, I have a good relationship with Secretary Sudders. I mean, I can call her and text her, and she will call me back. She will within a reasonable time. So that's been lately. That's been a great tool, and her staff has been very responsive as well. I've known Secretary Sudders for many years. I don't want to tell you how many. Been dating myself, but it's challenging. It's challenging. I think there are areas that we can do better and we should do better, and I think we're working to make sure that happens.
Do you think that the essential workers are getting the shots in a timely manner right now as well? I mean, I'm not just talking about the firefighters, but the grocery store workers and the people who are working in areas in employment that maybe people don't think about, but they are essential workers to just getting things done right now during the pandemic.
I think right now they are on phase 3. We are on phase 3, and all of those categories that you mentioned are eligible to be vaccinated. Again, how much supply do we have?
Right.
It's really, believe it or not, that's really important. And now we have teachers that we have to vaccinate, and all the support staff of the school systems throughout the state. There is this urgency to open, especially elementary level schools, by the first week of April, and I agree with that. I think
the time's right, you think?
I think the time is right. I think we need to get back to those classrooms, but we need to get back to those classrooms in a safe way.
And you're coming at this as a parent as well.
That's right.
So,
that's right. And but vaccination is important. We know that kids can't get a vaccine yet. Hopefully, we get to the point that maybe in the fall for the next
Yeah, I
school
know.
year.
I think they're doing 16. They're studying right now,
Right.
like high school kids,
Right.
to see for the fall if they could do it. And
Right, they're doing that, and I think we got to give some time to the scientists to work that out, and hopefully get some data back that we also can vaccinate not only the high school level students but all students at the beginning. Hopefully, the ideal would be when we start the next school year that we could move in that direction. But I think teachers, all the support staff should be vaccinated. I think that's important. Ventilation systems in the school buildings are important to be looked at. Sometimes they need to be replaced. I think we're going to have some money now for that. The package, the federal
Right.
stimulus package, it does include not millions but billions of dollars for school systems and also for state government and local governments. So sort of a combination of that way. And I think there will be funds. So I'm hoping that our communities, the city of New Bedford, takes a good look at all those safety matters, how you set up the classroom to create some social distance. So I think there's some work to do. I think we can do it. I think the resources will be there now to do it. And the ventilation systems, obviously, that's very important.
And not even the federal government, but I know the state government has taken, has provided some relief as well for different things during the coronavirus business-wise, and especially to help local businesses try to stay afloat through this.
We have. I mean, we have set aside millions of dollars. I mean, we have the program that is through the Mass Growth Capital. That program itself, we've set aside almost $700 million to specifically help small business. All that money has not been distributed yet. We're still working through, analyzing every application, but they will get through all of that. We're going to be debating this week on Thursday a whole new package, one to address the issue of unemployment. As you know, companies are due, their bills are due for the unemployment fund by the end of the first quarter, which would be at the end of March. We need to adjust that, or else it's going to be a tremendous negative impact for businesses, especially the smaller ones, but the larger ones as well. As you know, without us freezing that rate, they will see about a 60% increase.
Yeah, the rates are just going to skyrocket.
No, they cannot support that kind of stuff right now. So we have to do that. In addition to that, we're going to have other provisions around addressing additional assistance for small business as well.
What are the biggest issues that you're hearing from, and you're out obviously in the city a lot here.
Yep.
What are the biggest issues that you're hearing from the small business owners? Because I know the legislature has taken steps. Is that are they getting the money, or?
Well, I think one is getting the money. I think the state system or the process is a little more cumbersome than the initial federal process.
Yep.
It's much easier to get that aid quicker. The way the state is doing it, it's a little cumbersome. It's taking a while to get to everybody that applied and everybody that actually needs. I think it's the speed of the decision making and how you get that money to that small business in time for them to survive. So you don't see additional closures. I think that's been one of the problems. I understand that the state is very careful because this is grants. This is not loans. This is grants. So there is a diligence in trying to check the whole list, right?
Yep.
Make sure that everybody qualifies, so we don't have backlash at some point that some folks got it that shouldn't have received it. But I think we need to do that quicker. And I think that's one of the concerns out there from small businesses.
In a city like New Bedford, where so many small businesses are at stake,
yes,
more than most communities, really.
Absolutely. And small businesses are very, very important for us in New Bedford and throughout the state. I mean, they produce thousands of jobs. And some of them, especially in the restaurant area and bars that serve food, they've taken a tremendous hit. I mean, in Massachusetts alone, we've seen over 4,000 of those businesses close, permanently close. And unfortunately, we might see more by the time we actually can return to some more normalcy. And that's why these programs, such as these direct assistance grants in particular to small business, are very crucial for their survival for the next few months. I believe the federal program, the stimulus package, will give us additional resources. The state will receive around $8 billion, the state alone. Mm-hmm. And I'm mentioning localities, communities, cities and towns, school districts. So that's going to help us step back a little bit and see what else can we do in that area of small business. Also on this package that we are debating, there are some proposals, some possible amendments. One of them is, I'm advocating for that as well. One of those amendments is my amendment. It's around how much money, I think we should have a cap of how much people pay income taxes on their unemployment that they received during 2020 during the pandemic. The federal package stipulates that the first $10,200 will not be subject to federal income tax. I believe we should do the same at the state level. We're still trying to run the numbers, work the numbers, see what kind of, obviously there is a financial impact to the state to do that, but I think in the long run, depending on those numbers, it might be really something that we should do and help those families and those workers. Because some of them will be they'll be shocked, especially because of the additional $600 initially, the additional $300 on top of the traditional amount that they receive. Those tax bills will be substantial in some cases. So I think we ought to look at that area too, and not only help the business, but help the workers. And that's a way that we can help the workers.
We've got about 5 minutes left, but I wanted you to touch base too, because I know a lot of the calls that you get in your office, obviously you deal with individual and healthcare and shots and what have you. What advice are you and your staff giving folks who are looking for shots or looking for just healthcare related questions? What are you urging people to do to help?
I mean, we have received over the last few months, as you can imagine, hundreds of calls.
Yep.
And we try to get to every call as quickly as we can and help them. It goes from unemployment insurance, which had tremendous challenges, as you know, and as the public know, to vaccination now, appointments to get a vaccine, and all other issues around healthcare. So I think what we do is we try at least to get the necessary information and sort of walk through the folks through in order for them to get the assistance that they need. There are some things that we need to make sure that we follow the HIPAA law. Right. You know, in some cases we can't just call directly and speak for somebody else. That person has to be online with us, on the phone with us to give permission, and that's the way it should be. So should people be going to the state website, though? Are you confident that could be the best way to at least start the process for searching for vaccines? I think the best. There are several ways. I think one is the state website, which is working a lot better than it did before. Right. Obviously, there was a major hiccup before. I would encourage those who don't feel comfortable navigating the web, navigating the internet, to use the call center. The number for the state is pretty simple. It's 211, right? Yep. 211. And I think that since that's been implemented, has been a tremendous help for folks in general, and for us, helping folks too. Right. It's become a lot easier. Then you have, the CVS's, the Walgreens, the community health center, be the one in New Bedford or other communities. The local board of health is also a helpful connection. And in our case, in the South Coast, we have the mega site that is run by the state at the old Circuit City, and we have South Coast Health also running 3 sites. And they have a number too. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but they have a number. People should look up. That's the best way. You can use their website too, right? But for South Coast Health, my recommendation is call the number. Okay. Get the number, call the number, and I think you're going to be fairly pleased that you're going to get through and you're going to get an appointment. Do you think you'll see? Do you think we'll see? Because I know the legislature, I know you are advocating for more sites for shots. Do you think we'll see more sites for shots in this neck of the woods? I think you're going to see more CVSs
Okay.
be up and running on vaccination. Right now, there are limited still
Right.
in terms of the city and the state. You're going to see some more Walgreens doing that, and hopefully other independent pharmacies as well in the area. Now, we don't have too many of those left, but hopefully those will eventually, once we have enough dosage of
Yeah.
vaccines to go around, I think you're going to see more locations. In the city itself, the local Board of Health will continue to receive dosages. They have the McCoy Recreational Center.
I know the health center too.
Yeah,
has been doing
so that's all positive. I think if we have what President Biden has said recently, that by the end of May we should have enough dosages of vaccine to vaccinate everybody who needs to be vaccinated or wants to be vaccinated. It doesn't mean that everybody will be done by the end of May, because if you look at the numbers, even if we had enough shots available, you're not going to get to everybody by the end of May.
No, they're doing
right?
2 million shots a day right now.
So
yeah.
I think we'll go into midsummer or more in some cases, but at least we'll have the supply to book the number of appointments that we can book on a daily basis. Right now, you only can book once a week, right?
Right.
And once the state knows how many dosages you have available, and it's been averaging about 139,000 dosages lately that the state receives and then distributes to all its all of the locations, for the exception of the CVS's and the Walgreens. They get direct.
Yep.
Supply. All I can say is that if anybody continues to have difficulty making an appointment, be for a vaccination or any other issue, unemployment, just give us a call, and we'll be there to help them through the process.
It's good seeing you.
Nice
Thanks
seeing
for coming
you,
in. Lots to
thank
talk
you.
about. We didn't even get to a lot of the stuff
We
here.
didn't get to a lot of the legislation that I wanted to talk about.
I know.
Maybe we got to do this more often.
COVID just keeps dominating everything right now.
Right.
But I know you've
It
been
is.
on top of it since the start, so
Yes.
we
Well,
appreciate
thank
that.
you very much, and I hope everybody is staying safe and healthy. Please follow all the recommendations. Even if you've been vaccinated, follow those recommendations closely, especially as the CDC has put out already, and they will continue to adjust those recommendations, especially for those who've been vaccinated already. So stay healthy, please.
State Representative Tony Cabral, our guest on the Beacon Hill Report. I'm Jim Marshall. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.